Powered industrial trucks. Objectives. Understand the unique hazards of forklift operation, specifics of tree-assembled forklifts, safe movement during picking, stacking, and traveling with loads, pre-use inspections, and operator evaluations. Definition of a powered industrial truck. A powered industrial truck is a mobile, power-propelled truck used to carry, push, pull, lift, stack, or tier materials. This is according to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Powered industrial trucks exclude vehicles used for earth moving and over-the-road hauling, commonly known as forklifts, pallet trucks, rider trucks, tow motors, fork trucks, or lift trucks. And forklifts can be powered through electric or combustion engines. Performance-oriented requirements. The powered industrial truck, or PIT, operator training requirements are performance-oriented to permit employers to tailor a training program to the characteristics of their workplaces and the particular types of powered industrial trucks operated. The training program includes both classroom and operational instruction. Anyone who will operate a PIT is required to have training. There are 7 different types of forklifts. A Class 1 is an electric motor rider truck. A Class 2 is an electric motor narrow aisle truck. Class 3 is an electric motor hand truck or hand rider trucks. Class 4 is an internal combustion engine with solid cushion tires. Class 5 is an internal combustion engine truck with pneumatic tires. Class 6 is an electric and internal combustion engine tractors. And Class 7 is a rough terrain forklift truck. Authorization. This training allows you to operate forklifts on tree-assembled projects and/or in designated facilities. Forklifts will vary based on the project. Remember, you will be evaluated on the specific class of forklift that you will operate. Operating instructions. Mounting and dismounting. Potential hazards. Hitting your head on an overhead cage, slips, trips, and falls, especially feet slipping off of the steps. Requirements and recommended practices. Be sure that your hands are clean and dry to prevent slipping when grabbing the handhold. Check your shoes or boots for grease before entering the vehicle. Grasp the handhold and get a good grip. Never grab the steering wheel because it could cause you to lose balance if it moves. Always be careful with your footing when mounting and dismounting the vehicle. Pull or lower your body carefully into and out of the cab. Dismounting is the opposite of mounting. Do not jump. Wear appropriate footwear to prevent skids. Starting. Before starting a forklift, be sure to conduct a pre-operation inspection. In addition, conduct an operational engine check after starting the engine. Ensure that your way is clear. Sound your horn in warning or use a spotter if your view is obstructed. Proceed cautiously down the travel path, watching for dangerous blind spots. Operating instructions, stopping and parking. Select an area to park. Do not park in an unauthorized area. Do not block an aisle or exits. Apply the brake slowly and stop. Neutralize the controls. Set the parking brake. Turn off the ignition. If the truck is parked on an incline, block the wheels. Some questions you need to ask yourself. Are there areas in the mill or facility where forklifts are not allowed to be parked? And are there stop signs posted in the facility? Please observe all signs when operating a forklift. Operating at speed. While traveling, avoid these potential hazards. Tip overs, which can be caused by driving too fast, collision with pedestrians and obstacles caused by inattention and not being able to stop in time, and then ask yourself what other hazards exist. Things such as poor lighting, entering and exiting the mill, so on and so forth. Recommended safe practices. Under all travel conditions, the truck must operate at a speed that will permit it to be brought to a stop in a safe manner. The driver must slow down for wet and slippery floors. The driver must look in the direction of the path of travel. The driver must slow down and sound the horn when vision is obstructed. When negotiating turns, speed shall be reduced. Turn in a smooth motion. Grades shall be ascended or descended slowly. When ascending or descending grades in excess of 10%, loaded trucks shall be driven with the load upgrade. Running over loose objects on the roadway surface shall be avoided. While steering, be aware of these potential hazards. Collision with pedestrians or objects due to the forklift's tail swinging to the side opposite the direction of the turn, falling load following a collision, or a tip over caused by turning too sharply. Recommended safe practices. When turning, reduce speed to a safe level. Proceed with caution when making turns, especially when working in confined areas or narrow aisles. When the lift truck turns a corner, the rear of the lift truck swings in the opposite direction of the turn. Anticipate the rear end swing and start the turn as close to the inside corner as possible. Plan your route and anticipate turns. Never turn with forks elevated. Never turn on a grade. The forklift may tip over laterally even on a very small grade. Reversing. While backing up or reversing, be aware of these potential hazards. Pedestrians being struck by or crushed by the forklift, and collision with another forklift or racking. Recommended safe practices. Keep a clear view. Look in the direction of travel. When reversing, look behind. Be aware of limited visibility and use extreme caution when driving in reverse. Consider the use of ground guides or spotters, rear view mirrors, or other aids to increase visibility. Consider the noise level in your workplace. Do not assume pedestrians or bystanders are able to hear a backup alarm. Allow plenty of room for pedestrians. You cannot anticipate what people will do. Many have no idea how quickly forklifts accelerate and how sharply they turn. Never assume pedestrians or bystanders are aware of the presence of heavy equipment and the intended direction of travel. Do not grab the overhead guard when traveling in reverse. This could expose the operator's fingers to serious injury. Changing direction. When changing direction, be aware of these potential hazards. Tip over or collision with a pedestrian, another vehicle, or an object. Recommended safe practices. Come to a complete stop before changing directions. Use a horn or warning light to warn pedestrians when reversing. Safe travel practices. While traveling, be aware of these potential hazards. Overturning forklift, falling load, being struck or crushed by the forklift, and collision. The recommended safe practices are: always look in all directions before proceeding. Always look in the direction of travel. If the load blocks your view, travel in reverse. Keep a clear view. Observe all traffic regulations, including authorized plant speed limits. Maintain a safe distance, approximately 3 truck lengths from the truck ahead, and keep the truck under control at all times. Yield the right of way to ambulances, fire trucks, or other vehicles in emergency situations. Do not pass other trucks traveling in the same direction at intersections, blind spots, or other dangerous locations. Cross railroad tracks diagonally wherever possible. Do not park closer than 8 feet from the center of railroad tracks. Operate at a speed that will permit the truck to be brought to a stop in a safe manner under all travel conditions. Safe travel practices continued. Recommended safe practices. Do not engage in stunt driving and horseplay. Slow down for wet and slippery floors. Properly secure the dock board or bridge plates before driving over them. Drive over them carefully and slowly and never exceed their stated capacity. Approach elevators slowly and enter squarely after the elevator car is properly leveled. Once on the elevator, neutralize the controls, shut off the power, and set the brakes. Separate forklift and pedestrian traffic as much as possible. Never carry passengers. Keep arms and legs inside the confines of your vehicle. Watch for surface obstructions. Even a small bump can cause a load to fall off elevated forks. Never drive up to anyone who is in front of a bench or other fixed object. Do not travel into a position that, if the forklift jumped forward, the brakes failed, or the wrong lever was pushed, a coworker could be pinned between the forklift and another object. Safe travel practices continued. In the first photo, you will notice that the operator is looking in the direction of travel and keeping the arms in the confines of the vehicle. In the second photo, the operator is traveling with the load lowered about 4 to 6 inches off the ground. The third photo demonstrates an unsafe practice. Do not travel with the load elevated, as the operator's view is obstructed. Traveling on inclines. While traveling on a grade or incline, be aware of these potential hazards: tip over and falling load. The recommended safe practices are: drive loaded trucks forward going up a ramp with the load upgrade, and drive in reverse going down a ramp with the load upgrade. Always drive unloaded trucks with the forks downgrade. Never drive with the load downgrade. Never turn a forklift on a grade. Visibility. When visibility is impaired, be aware of these potential hazards: collision, falling load, falling off loading dock, worker struck or crushed by forklift. The recommended safe practices are: keep a clear view, look in the direction of travel. When reversing, look behind. Use spotters, rear view mirrors, or other aids to increase visibility. Where available, use concave mirrors when entering buildings or aisles. Equip forklifts with headlights where general lighting is less than 2 lumens per square foot. In general, forklifts should have headlights if working at night, outdoors, or in any area where additional lighting would improve quality. Going from bright daylight into a darkened warehouse may blind drivers just long enough to hit another worker, vehicle, or object. Visibility continued. Recommended safe practices: drive slowly into and out of warehouses or other buildings. Be especially careful on loading docks. Stay away from the edge. Add physical barriers such as ramps, raised concrete staging areas, and heavy gauge safety chains in front of dock openings. Use protective guardrails. Add a warning track of yellow paint on the floor near dock openings. Slow down and sound the horn at cross aisles and other locations where vision is obstructed. Tip over. There are two basic types of tip overs in a forklift. One, a forward tip or longitudinal tip, and two, a lateral or side tip. The procedure to follow in the event of a tip over varies depending on the type of tip over and the class of forklifts you may use in your facility. For tip overs on sit-down counterbalance trucks, don't jump, stay in the forklift. Hold tight to the steering wheel. Brace your feet. Lean away from the impact and then lean forward. On the right, you will see an example of a warning label on a powered industrial truck showing actions to take in the event of a tip over of a sit-down counterbalance truck. Note that the operator's seatbelt should already be fastened. A PIT versus an automobile. A powered industrial truck has the following characteristics. They weigh between 2 and 20 tons. They have rear wheel steering. They have a high center of gravity, low visibility. They typically ride less smoothly, and they are more sensitive to shifts in the center of gravity. An automobile typically weighs 1 to 3 tons. Front wheel steering. They have a low center of gravity, typically have excellent visibility, does not carry a load in the front, and they are relatively stable. The instrument panel. You must be familiar with the instrument panel of the truck you will be operating. Your evaluator will review the instrument panel with you prior to operation. The two pictures below show the various different components of a typical forklift. You must be familiar with these components as these are typically a part of the pre-use inspection. Forklift attachments. If there are forklift attachments that will be used, your evaluator will review these with you and explain their function, limitation, installation, and removal. Refueling of liquefied petroleum gas forklifts. Potential hazard. LPG vapor is heavier than air and will seek the lowest lying area. If not adequately dissipated, it will collect in pockets and possibly ignite when exposed to a heat source. LPG is extremely flammable. LPG is also extremely cold when exposed to the atmosphere. If your skin is exposed to LPG, you can get frostbite. Safe practices. Do not refuel LPG powered trucks in confined areas where LPG vapors could collect if a leak occurs. Do not leave LPG powered trucks near heat sources, stairways, exits, or other egress areas. When parking the LPG powered trucks for a long period of time, turn the service valve off. Only trained and authorized personnel should replace LPG containers. Follow proper procedures for storing and handling liquid petroleum gas. Refueling continued. Lifting. Use good lifting practices, such as your body in neutral position, you lift with your legs, and do not overreach. The minimum PPE when refueling an LPG is safety glasses, gloves, typically leather or insulated neoprene, safety toe shoes, and normal work clothing. Area. Tanks must be handled or managed on a flat, level surface. Do not change tanks near open flames or sparks. Load composition. The front wheels of the forklift are the fulcrum point. The rear of the forklift has counterweights to help set off the weight of the load. Unloaded forklift is less stable because all the weight is in the rear. When the forks are loaded, the weight of the forklift and load are more evenly balanced. Therefore, a loaded forklift is more stable. When the load outweighs the counterweight, the forklift can tip forward when the load is raised. Stability triangle. Please look at the photo on the right. The closer the center of gravity, or CG, is to the line BC, the more stable the forklift is. The line BC is between the two wheels of the front of the forklift nearest the mast. The closer the CG is to lines AB or AC, the more unstable the forklift becomes. If the center of gravity ever goes outside the stability triangle, the forklift will tip. This is caused from loads too heavy or offset, taking corners too fast, or traveling surfaces that are not level. Determining the capacity. Look at the picture on the right of the screen. Let's, in this example, say that the forklift has a rated load of 5,000 pounds when the load is centered at 24 inches. Keep in mind that the greater the load center, the lower the load capacity. In this situation, this forklift has a 5,000 pound capacity at a 24-inch load center, and it needs to handle a load whose center is 28 inches from the front face of the forks in the horizontal direction. The first thing to recognize is that the actual load center is 28 inches, exceeds the standard load center distance of 24 inches on this forklift that has the 5,000 pound capacity. When determining the load center, you take the standard load center of 24 inches, divide that by the new load center of 28 inches, multiply that by 5,000 pounds, which gives you a new rated load of 4,285 pounds. Let's determine the estimated capacity of a forklift if the load center is 36 inches. You need to remember that the shifting center of gravity when tilting the forks forward. This decreases the capacity of the forklift. Beware of the rule of thumb, as it is not accurate. That rule of thumb states for every 1 inch away from center, you decrease the capacity by 100 pounds. When in doubt, refer to the manufacturer's recommendation. So let's do the calculation. If the load center is 36 inches, you do 24 inches divided by 36 inches and multiply that by 5,000 pounds. So the new approximate safe load capacity is now 3,333 pounds. This photo demonstrates the stability triangle. As you can see, stable combined with the center of gravity is within the stability triangle. When it's an unstable forklift, it will tip sideways because the load center of gravity is outside the stability triangle. Now let's look at load centering. When centering your load, ensure that the heavier weight is towards the mast of the forklift. Avoid putting the heavier weights on the tips of the forks, as that will move your load center farther away from the mast itself. What happens when the forklifts are tilted towards the forklift truck? This changes the load center. This is able to increase your capacity of the forklift. On the opposite side, if you tilt forward, the load center will shift farther out, decreasing your forklift capacity. Handling the load. Picking up the load. Approach the load straight on with the forks in the travel position, which is approximately 4 to 6 inches off the ground. When the fork tips are approximately 1 foot away from the load, you should stop. Level the forks and drive slowly forward until the load is against the backrest. Lift the load high enough to clear what is under it. Look over both shoulders to make sure you are clear and slowly back out 1 foot. Sound the horn before backing if you can't see clearly behind you. Slowly tilt the mast back to stabilize the load. In this picture, the load center is beyond what it should be based on the position of the load on the forks. However, it may be because the driver was unable to gain full access to the load based on the obstructions. What should the driver do to correct this and improve the stability of the forklift? Once they have cleared the obstructions, lower the load to the ground and reposition the forks so that the load is towards the backrest. Setting down the load. Drive to the location, square up the load to the area to be offloaded and stop about 1 foot away. Level the forks and slowly drive forward. Lower the load, tilt the forks slightly forward, look over your shoulders and back straight out until the forks have cleared the load. Another aspect of forklift operations are workplace topics. Workplace topics will be explained by your evaluator. Common topics are spotter requirements, overhead clearance, and client requirements. Forklift operator evaluation. Once you have completed this video, you will be required to go through a hands-on evaluation for forklift operators. Further instruction on the specific type of forklift will be provided by your evaluator. The following areas will be evaluated by a qualified person. You will demonstrate that you can do a pre-use inspection. You can demonstrate that you can pick up the load safely. You must demonstrate that you can travel with the load correctly. You must demonstrate that you can put down a load safely. And you must demonstrate that you can park the load in an authorized location. Once you have completed those steps, the evaluator will sign the document as well as the operator must sign the document.